11 years ago, I was working as a sales rep at a tech company and I was up for promotion. All I had to do was close 30 deals by the end of the quarter. But there was one big problem. I had fumbled the entire quarter and I was left with 7 days left and needing to close 14 deals. Nobody in the company had ever done this before. If I closed 14 deals, I'd get promoted. If I didn't, it was basically a death sentence to my sales career. Because if you know anything about being in sales, you know that unless you're a top performer, you're easy to replace. Spoiler alert, I ended up closing $56,000 in 7 days, hitting my quota and getting promoted. Since then, I've been in sales for over 11 years. I've written 3 books on sales and I've helped build over 70 B2B sales teams. So with that being said, in this video, I'm gonna go over the 7 things that I learned from this experience. So number 1 is focus on activities that move the needle quickly. In my case, it was reaching out to people using the phone. And for most people, that's the case. There are a lot of ways to get in front of your potential customers, to hear back from prospects, but the phone is the most powerful. You can have the back and forth conversation that you need to understand the challenges that they're having, and more importantly, truly position your solution as a true solution to those challenges, getting the prospect from where they are to where they want to be. What I see a lot of people do is they'll go and they'll start sending a whole bunch of emails to try to get deals across the finish line at the very end of the quarter. And this just doesn't work all that well. They can be ignored. Prospects will do all the thinking without your aid and then just give you a response of yes or no. You lose a lot of control when you just spam a bunch of emails out there. Now, of course, you might be emailing people who already have some knowledge of your solution, but even then, it just doesn't move the needle nearly as fast. The same thing goes for LinkedIn. This is the second thing that I see people do pretty often. They'll start messaging a whole bunch of people on LinkedIn. Some of those will be cold, some of them will be people they've connected with before in the past, and it has the same problem of email. It's just slow. And when you're in a position where you need to close deals quickly, these channels are not the most effective. So the thing that I really like I mentioned earlier, is calling. Really, if you are in a pinch and you need to close as many deals as you possibly can in a short window, call. Because you'll actually be able to talk to somebody. And that back and forth is what you need to be able to get a deal done. Which brings us to point number 2. People buy from those that they know, like, and trust. And this is critical to understand. And you might know it as a surface level, but let's talk about really why this is so important when you're in a situation where you need to close a lot of deals in a short time frame. Let me tell you about one of the sales reps who worked in the office with me. This guy was so talented at building rapport with potential customers, but it was the funniest thing to see because he was this overweight guy who wore big basketball shorts and flip-flops to the office. He was an absolute mess. And you would look at him and be like, how is he doing this? But if you listened to him on the phone, he sounded like he was the CEO of a billion-dollar company who was also my relative. You know, he had this like aggressive, really direct tone and aura, but also incredibly friendly and warm. It was so unique to see. And he was able to build relationships so quickly with anybody that he spoke to. And that truly was his superpower. And know, like, and trust is such an important part of the equation here. If you have that relationship with a potential customer, they're a lot more likely to move forward with you. But when you're in a situation where you're feeling a lot of pressure, you need to close a lot of deals in a short period of time, it can be very easy to fall into this desperation mode where you're just doing whatever you can to close a deal and the prospects feel it. And it's no longer about them and it's about you. And that energy, even if you try to suppress it, is going to kill your chances of getting any deal closed. And the beauty of the sales rep who I just told you about was that no matter what pressure he was under, he was always so genuine and was able to talk to anybody and build good relationships with anybody without pushing his own agenda forward. He genuinely cared about the prospect, and that's what you must do even in situations where you're feeling the pressure and your job might be on the line. Which brings us to my 3rd point, which is find the lowest hanging fruit. In that situation, you need a lot of deals quickly. You need to find the lowest hanging fruit. The way that I did this back then, and I would recommend you doing this if you haven't already, is I went and I found close lost opportunities. What close lost opportunities are their deals where they had seen the product or service before. We had had a sales call with them, but they chose not to move forward. They already know us. which is why it's so powerful. They might even like us. They might even trust us. Whatever the reason they didn't move forward, it is what it is. Today's a new day. So you reach out to those people who had said no. They already have a good foundation of understanding of your organization, the product or service that you're selling, who you are in some cases, and this is really low-hanging fruit. Here's how I recommend reaching out to close lost opportunities. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is call them, and you shouldn't be shocked that I said that. You need to call all of these people and get them on the phone. It works so much better than email or any other method. When you have them on the phone, you're gonna follow this script here. It starts off by saying, hey, this is Kyle calling from 20’s. I'm doing a bit of quality control here. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions and let you decide if we should chat? This sets up the stage that we're doing some quality control. It's more of a customer service call, and we're asking permission to be able to engage in the conversation. A lot of times they're going to say yes to this. It's very non-salesy, non-threatening. The next part of the script is this. I noticed that you had seen a demonstration or you had gone through a sales call before in the past and you chose not to move forward. I'm curious, was there something we did that pushed you away or what happened here? Now, do not change that part of the script. What we're doing there is we're not giving them an out. We're not saying, was the cost the problem? Was it not the right time? What was it? Right? We're not giving them options. Instead, we are suggesting that we might have done something to push them away. Because we're making that suggestion and we didn't do anything to push them away, the prospect is immediately going to want to tell you that you didn't do anything to push them away. And then they're gonna give you a reason why. If you give them an out, they're just gonna pick that reason. They're gonna say, yeah, it was the cost. So what you wanna do is you wanna say, was there something we did that pushed you away or what happened here? So you don't give them any options, which forces them to tell you the truth, which is what you need in order to continue the conversation. So the next part of the script, after they tell you the reason that held them back, is gonna sound like this. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad there's nothing we did to push you away. I'm curious, what motivated you to take a look at us in the first place? Or what motivated you to evaluate us in the first place? This opens up the conversation. They'll tell you, oh, I was dealing with this problem. I wanted to find something to help me with this, whatever it is. And now you have a back and forth conversation and you can rebook the sales call from there. Which brings us to point number 4, sales is a transfer of emotion. Let me show you something really cool. This right here, this in my hand is a 100-year-old sales book. I can smell the cigarette. Whoever owned this originally in the 1920s was sitting in their den smoking a cigarette and it seeped into the pages of this book. What I love about this book is it gives us insight into what the author believed was really important for sales in 1924. I mean, it was literally written in 1924. So let me read you a passage from a 100-year-old sales book. Enthusiasm is contagious. Feeling imparts feeling. It spreads like conflagration. The enthusiasm of the salesman is communicated to the prospect during every stage of the sale, but it reaches a climax as he holds his offering up before the prospect in the form of a vivid description or picture. Intense feeling radiates from his eyes, his face, his voice, his attitude. The prospect absorbs it. It is one of the most imponderable forces in salesmanship. It is especially effective at stimulating desire. 100 years ago, they were talking about the importance of enthusiasm. Sales is a transfer of emotion, and you as the salesperson need to be very effective at demonstrating your emotion to transfer it to the prospect. And your enthusiasm over the product has a big part to play. For example, if you are needy and desperate to get a deal, it's gonna be very hard to get a deal. You're gonna transfer that energy to the prospect. Don't be a weirdo. Genuinely care about the product or service that you sell and show how much you care to the prospects when you talk to them. Remember, sales is an energy game, and how you manage your own emotions and your own energy has a big impact on if you're gonna be successful or not. So let's put this back, and I'm gonna share with you exactly how to better manage your emotions. Rolly chairs are fun. So one of the things I would do, especially when I was having trouble with some of my emotions, and during this time I really was because I needed so many deals in a short period of time, I would start to reset after calls. And I would do a visualization exercise in order to do that. This is what I would do. I would sit down or stand, but really sit. I would close my eyes, and go ahead and do this now or do this before your next call. And I would visualize an experience where I feel the most confident. So think about that. When did you feel like you were on top of the world? When you were the most enthusiastic, when you were the most excited? So for me, I did stand-up comedy for 5 years. The most exciting, high confidence experience I have ever had is that walk from the side of the stage to the microphone. So I'd close my eyes and I'd put myself there. I'd feel how I felt in that moment. What did it smell like? How did my heart feel? Was it racing a little bit? You put yourself in that place and it helps you reset and realign with an emotion or an emotional state that is much more effective for you when you're doing those calls. Which leads me to point number 5, you got to know your buyer even better than they do. At one point in my career, I was running the inside sales team at a large global supply chain software company. And I used to go to a lot of conferences with the team. And I would go on the conference floor and I would talk to a whole bunch of people. Anyway, I'm talking to this high-level executive, VP level in supply chain. Okay, this is a large supply chain software company that I worked at. They were in supply chain and they worked at a Fortune 500 company, very large organization that does a bunch of shipping all over the globe. And I'm talking to this person for a really long time. We had a great conversation, like 40 minutes of us just standing, talking back and forth. And at one point she says to me, "So how long have you been in supply chain for?" The reality was it was 3 months. So I told her that. I said, I just started at this company. I have no supply chain background. So I've been really in this industry for 3 months now. Her jaw hit the floor. She's like, "I cannot believe you've only been in supply chain for 3 months. It sounds like you know so much about this industry." Now, that was by design. The thing is, I want myself and all sales reps to be able to have conversations with their buyers and that buyer just to assume that they're in the industry as well or in a similar role as them. Not that they're a salesperson trying to sell them something. It's because I could speak the language so well. Now, supply chain is really deep and complex. I mean, we're covering logistics, international shipping, ports, motor carriers, railroads. Like there's so much in there. It's a very deep industry. To learn that industry was really hard, but I have a great framework for quickly learning anything. So let me share that with you real quick so you can apply it. The first thing here is you need to get into the room with the people you sell to. This is critical. You have to rub shoulders. You have to belong. And the more time you spend around people in that space, the more you pick up their lingo and how they talk to each other. And you can start to learn how you need to talk and behave in order to truly understand their world. The second thing you need to do here is always ask why. And this really helps if early on you spend a lot of time with your buyers in a non-sales environment, go to local meetup groups, etc. And ask why. "Oh, why do you do it that way? Oh, why is that an issue? Oh, why? You ask why 1,000 times. And you're gonna sound like you don't know what you're talking about. That's the whole point. You need to sound like you don't know in order to know. And as you keep asking why, you're gonna start learning. Oh, it kind of works like this. It kind of works like that. Which leads me to the third thing here. Make wild assumptions on why something is. After you've asked why a lot, you start to kind of understand things. Then when someone says something, you reply with, "Oh, is it like that because of," and then you take some other knowledge that you have and see if it applies. If they say yes, that's a big click for you. Most of the time they're gonna say no because you're making these wild assumptions, and go crazy with it. Just say, "Oh, it's kind of like how this and this works. Is it the same here?" Just let them tell you you're wrong. You have to be comfortable being wrong. Don't be afraid. Being wrong is a good thing. As you make those wild assumptions, what you're gonna find out is that you're wrong a lot of the time, you're right a couple times. Every time you're right, it's like a big connection in your head, right? Because you're starting to really put all of these little endpoints together and creating this web of knowledge. You keep doing that over and over and over again, you're gonna find that you're wrong a lot less of the time. Now you're starting to get confidence and you're having more of an understanding holistically of the industry. So that's what I do whenever I enter a new industry. It allows me to learn the industry really quickly, and I benefit by being around people who have been in that industry a long time, but being very willing willing to be the dumbest person in the room. This brings me to point number 6. Don't be nervous to ask for the deal. When I was in that situation where I needed to close a whole bunch of deals with 7 days left, I had no choice but to ask for the deal every single time. And what I would do is when I talked to somebody, I would ask for their credit card number. At the time, I was just responsible for booking the meeting. So the deals I needed, I was an SDR. These are, I cold called, I booked appointments, and I was gonna be promoted to an AE. In order for me to get promoted, those deals needed to close, which was the AE's responsibility. If I just left it up to them, I would not have hit my number. So what I started doing was I was asking for the business on the call. I would call the lost opportunities. I would ask them for their business. Do you want to move forward? I would write their credit card on a piece of paper. I would go and give that number to the AE who would charge their card and schedule the kickoff meeting. And then we would shred the card number up and I would go on to the next one. I would just do that over and over and over again because I wasn't afraid to ask for the deal. Which brings me to point number 7. Which is never be afraid to ask for help. A lot of times in sales, we feel like it's a solo sport. We're there, we're working really hard, we're trying to do whatever it takes to get the deals done. But the reality is, it's more of a team sport. The amount of times that I've hopped on a closing call for somebody who was on vacation and gave them all of the commission is uncountable. And people have done that for me too. We work together, we collaborate to get deals done. I would not have hit my number if I didn't go to all of these sales reps and ask which deals they had tried to close but weren't able to. That is really a critical part of this because it was the lowest hanging fruit. But I wouldn't accept just crossing my fingers and hoping the deals come through. I had to be active. I had to do things that move the needle like we talked about earlier. So you need to be comfortable asking for help and support. You'd be surprised. A lot of reps are there and they want you to be successful because they want to succeed as a team. It's not as individual as you might think. And just because there's a commission tied to it doesn't mean people aren't willing to take some time away from their own goal and work with you on yours. And the reality is the healthiest sales cultures are the ones that are the most team oriented. So these are the 7 things that I learned from closing $56,000 in 7 days. And if you want to see what I learned from overseeing nearly 4 million cold calls, watch this video right here and I'll see you there.